We made a commitment last year to get out to all of our schools. We thought it was important to see all of our schools. We did that, and I think that went over very well, and I would recommend we do that every year, that we try to meet each school and give each school a chance to put itself on display and show us what they're doing. I think that went really well. We do have limitations in that we can't broadcast live from some of those places, but I think that was a big success. And I also think, increasing community understanding of the budget, program, and staffing needs. I think that the forums that we held were, we got probably 100 or more people at the 3 different times that we held those. We got a lot of information out there. We answered a lot of questions. And I would continue those moving forward. And maybe not only the budget, maybe occasionally having a forum on other issues, whether it's health programs at the school, whether it's what are we doing in our, what are our school lunches like these days? Whatever, school start times, security. Those work very well.
Are we going to do those again this year? Or?
I'd like to, yeah. I'd like to.
I suggest we put in the mileage.
I know, the mileage, hotel, strategic planning, goal statement. The school committee will establish an overall education plan and provide a framework and environment which will support the success of this plan. The first objective is to prepare for a new strategic plan, which we have been discussing tonight. Much of the activity is in progress. We'll have our new middle school principal on board, and he'll be part of this. And I think Dr. Troughton has been moving this part of this along.
One of the questions about this too is what will come out of the governor's so-called readiness project. That has multiple components to it, and we may see some significant changes on how public schools are organized. At least that's some of the preliminary discussions, and how that will translate out to a new strategic plan. Comments such as the number of school districts in the Commonwealth is too many. These are comments that are coming from the state level.
Right.
And so how that will impact ultimately on how school districts are organized. I'm not saying don't do an individual strategic plan, but I think that readiness project, when it's completed, will clearly have an impact on where we go in the next 10 years.
Also under strategic planning, to improve the middle school programs and practices. We did review the schedule, had to review the schedule due to budget issues, the town meeting issue, and I know some different programs have been put in place for that last period of the day, where students are now getting a second helping of one of their courses, one of their core courses each day, and I think that's gone over well. We're always looking to expand after-school activities. We actually did discuss plans for interscholastic athletics, but at this point nothing was initiated because there's really no funding to get those kind of programs. We did institute a cross-country club this year, which was successful, and I think at least 3 students ran in a middle school, I think Cape Ann League meet or something like that this year. So where we can put clubs into place to give kids more opportunities, we're doing that. And of course completed, you saw tonight, John Fauché, our new middle school principal, has been hired. Also under strategic planning, to review the student health needs for the districts. We're always talking about health needs of our students. I think one of the things, hopefully, that we see with this new budget is some health education at the middle school. And I know that's something we've talked about as potentially putting into some sort of rotation. Youth at risk programs, Mrs. Vaca has been part of that committee, and we've done a lot of great things and a lot of great programs that have been brought to the kids at all different levels. So we're making progress there. Last 2 under strategic planning, objective to review elementary report cards and align with secondary report cards. As Mr. Jervy said, this is one that we've been talking about for a couple of years, and I think is important, but kind of gets pushed a little bit down to the bottom, and I think we should, when we talk about the strategic plan, we need to look at how we're reporting grades and progress to parents and how that lines up as you go from elementary to middle to secondary school. And I know Dr. Trojan feels that's an extremely important area.
I know that Pam Bodwin is working with teachers on developing these grade level benchmark assessments, and that starting right in elementary school, particularly in the area of reading and math. And those benchmark assessments are tied back to that elementary report card. So what we're looking for is a way to be able to not only quickly report that back to teachers, because they need that information, and I believe it's being done to coincide with the trimesters, but to also find a way to report that information back to parents, so that they understand how those assessments are being done. We are also at the middle school level looking at the beginning of what would a standards-based report card, and at least maybe changing from a quarterly system to contemplating a trimester system and a number of other changes. So some internal things going on, but we're not at a position where we're able to make a definite change.
If we did something like that, say a trimester at the middle school, do you then consider that at the high school, or does the high school have to remain quarterly? I mean, is that something you can consider for all levels?
I think anything is possible, but I think there'd be probably at the high school, because it's so much tied to college.
College, right. I just think the one thing that I've seen forever is that quarterly report cards a lot of times don't give enough time to. So I think when we went to when we went to the 3 marking periods a year in elementary, I think that you're getting a better read on how the students are doing.
There are 2 dilemmas at the moment, both addressed, but one is that you have health and phys ed swapping at mid-year.
Right.
And the other is that you often have students more or less relying on that mid-year report in their college applications.
Right.
If they had to wait for the second trimester, it would be late.
Right. Well, as you said, anything's possible, but I think it's something we should look at, especially at the middle school.
Kind of like that, school's stat time, so you can do it, but there's a lot of.
A lot of
conflict,
right,
a lot of follow-up,
right.
really.
You can actually work with anything as long as you take into all of the issues into consideration. I wouldn't say it was impossible, but there would be those kinds of issues that would have to be addressed.
A couple things. One thing I wanted to point out, and I think under this objective of reviewing curriculum and program needs, review of the math curriculum, from what I've seen, a lot of good work has gone into that, and the changes that have been made seem to have been positive changes. What I'm seeing at the middle school with algebra, and then flowing that up to the high school, and the better transition from the elementary to the middle school. I think that we've made a lot of good progress in the math curriculum area.
We're also, I mean, we pushed through the budget, the health education, and I think that message has really now gotten out there that it is a priority, and that we will be putting in a health program in middle school next year. And tied right into that is just the whole need to continue to expand world languages. And not sure yet how that's, how to best do that, because again, we're dealing with resources, and there's a limit, but we're contemplating increasing the number of periods, teaching periods in world language in the middle school next year.
David, at the high school level, is one of the ways to do that you hire teachers who can teach multiple foreign languages? I know they're not easy to find, but is that what we did when we had German for that period of time? Did we have one teacher who was doing?
That was a pretty narrow focus of it. In Spanish and French, we try to get duly certified.
Right.
But I think the next area that we would be looking at is Mandarin Chinese.
Yeah. Makes
Finding somebody who teaches Mandarin Chinese on one of the other languages you want.
So, I think in general, a lot of the goals, as Mr. Venezia said, we've basically a little more than halfway through the fiscal year '08.
Better than I thought.
Made some good progress on a lot of the goals. And I do think one of the important ones, which doesn't maybe show up on the bottom line, is the communication issue. And I think the committee and the administration is communicating much better with the community. We've got solid relationships with the citizens groups that have formed, and I think that those have to be maintained, and we have to continue to listen and provide guidance with and to those groups. Anybody have any other specific comments on the school committee goals?
Do I have to vote? No?
Just an internal report.
So let's move to, you want to quickly go through superintendent goals, or?
These are as they are, it's the same format.
Right. So I think,
Now, Can I
most,
just ask a general question?
Yes.
Please? Is this, do we follow this bit by bit when it comes to the superintendent's review, or is this goals that we sort of develop that the superintendent develops on his own, or do you develop them with some direction from the committee?
yeah, we
We
review
start
these.
with
Right.
your goal review
Right.
in the summer,
Yeah.
and I push the school committee to establish their goals, because in turn, that's gonna set the agenda here for the superintendent's goals, and then ultimately for the entire district. So that's the flow.
Okay, I was just
Generally, he makes this
concerned.
more easily attainable.
We approve.
We approved
Hours.
Yeah, we approve,
We
yeah.
approved his goals, we could
Right.
adjust
Okay,
them.
no, I'm just thinking, in terms of, that these could be a little bit more general. We don't, what's really scary, not only is this packet thicker than the school committees, but these are double-sided.
Oh, no, the
This
school committees
is
is thicker, but they're
both-
double-sided. The superintendent's is double-sided.
Yeah, but, I'm concerned that we're straying into the area of micromanagement.
Well, because this is part of the evaluative process for the superintendent, it has been considered important that the superintendent give us a picture of all of the things he is doing.
Right.
And I think that's why a lot of these things are listed in here as goals, as participation in these professional development groups and activities, his memberships. Those are, in the strictest sense, they're not objectives or goals, they're ongoing processes, but they help to round out the picture of what it is that the superintendent is doing, because this document does become part of the evaluation.
But I think your point is taken, in that, like, we want to look at ours and maybe cut back a little bit, maybe, maybe there are some things that David doesn't have to be doing. Oh, no,
Well,
we shouldn't say
they're
that.
tied in together, though, as seriously, as the chief administrative officer of the school department, the detail of his goals is gonna be much more than ours. I mean, like
Right.
David started off by saying, we basically have three functions, to
Right.
approve a budget, to hire him, and to establish policy. But administratively, he has a whole lot
Right.
more to do in the implementation of all those things. So I think that's why it's probably sometimes more detail here as to what that consists of. And it's not a bad idea to indicate, not only to the public too, that these are the responsibilities of the superintendent.
I do want to, so the superintendent works, as David said, under the same four categories: strategic planning, communication, policy, and professional development. I think a couple of important ones that are already completed. We have a new nurse and a coach evaluation procedure in place, which is helping us in terms of managing personnel. We've had a technology plan updated and submitted to the Department of Education. Then, of course, under the budget, most of the issues under the budget are the same issues that we as a committee deal with, although,
The David budget is a subject.
right. under strategic planning,